Hello and welcome back to the 39th, is it 39?
I believe so.
The 39th episode of the Select Characters Podcast. I'm Sam Yates. I will be your host this week, and I'm joined by my friends Ryan Dildine.
Hello.
And Enrique Cancel.
How's it going?
And we're here to have a little chat about the hobby we all enjoy, which is video games. And since we've been playing some, let's cruise on and talk about what we've been playing this week. And it has been another excellent, outstanding week for video games. Let's talk a little bit about what we have been playing. Let's start with Ryan. What you been playing this week?
I didn't pick up. You gave me a code for Cobalt, so that's what I've been playing most of the week, and it has been great fun.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played a platformer in so long. Like, I think, I don't even know what the last platformer I played was, but yeah, it looked really cool, and it looked really smooth and fluid and fun, and I jumped in, and I've been playing Deathmatch online, even though there's only like 2 servers with like 4 people in it.
That is a tremendous bummer, is the server list currently.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I got on, and I expected, I don't know, a few hundred people, but there's like 8 people online.
Yep.
So...
Yep, I've had the same experience, and I like Team Strike and Plug Slam. I like both of those better than Deathmatch, but it seems like there's 4 people playing Deathmatch, and that's normally about it, and there's nobody playing the other stuff, or there might be a server that's overseas, so the ping is bad because there's no, what are those things called? Dedicated servers.
Mm-hmm.
Which
so, I don't know, it's kind of a drawback, but I hopped into the story. I didn't get super far into the story, but, I mean, it was clever. I liked it. The dialogue's kind of funny, and some of the little... just like some of the little things they do to like where you have to unlock doors by matching the sound or whatever, like that stuff's kind of cool. But it was really the multiplayer that hooked me in. And I've been playing. Is it Team Strike? Is that the name?
Yeah, Team Strike, the one with the classes and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
It's really fun, and I've been playing it. That's most of what I've been playing. I hop on and see if anybody's playing Team Strike, and just do that. Other than Cobalt. What did I play? I started Shadow of Mordor.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you hadn't played that before?
No, I bought it a long time ago, and I was looking through my Steam library, and I was like, I never even installed this game. So, started playing that. I only played about an hour. I didn't get super into it, but it's really interesting. I really like the, what's it called? Is it the Nemesis system? Yep. Yeah, that's really interesting, and it's something, I haven't seen before other than this game. The only problem I had with it was I felt like, again, I only played for an hour, but I felt like whenever I went out to go kill a captain, I would end up alerting every AI in the game. And I just end up fighting like a huge group of guys until I died.
I think that sounds about right. But what you'll see is as you keep playing, you get stronger, and fighting hundreds of dudes becomes actually pretty cool because you are powerful enough that you don't just get whooped on.
Okay, because I was like, I would be surrounded by like 20 orcs or urks or whatever, and I'd be fighting them and I'd be doing okay, but it's like it's the same set of buttons over and over, and it's like as long as you block at the right time, you're never gonna die.
Yeah.
And so once I realized that, I was like, okay, I think I'll take a break now, and I didn't pick it up after that, but I'll keep playing it this next week and see if it really grabs me.
I know one of the complaints that I had with the game was that it seems like most of the really cool abilities you don't unlock till about the game's like 75% done.
Yeah.
Because there's like a really neat ability where you can brand the orcs, and then you can actually activate the brand to either basically explode their head or have them like turn on their allies, so they're kind of like a sleeper agent. So
gotcha.
It's really cool when you like brand all the orcs in a camp, like surrounding the main chieftain, and then you activate the brand and they'll turn on him. But again, you don't get that till like way, way, way late into the game. So it almost feels like you're kind of like you're just begging to get this ability, and then by the time you have it, you can't really use it.
Yeah.
But the Nemesis system is top notch, and I would like to see that implemented somewhere else more robustly. I think as a first time out, it's really awesome and it functions really well. You take out the leader, the other orc gets promoted, and you actually have to engage with that a little bit to try and set yourself up to make battles better and stuff, but it's not like it's crucial, and it's not like it's really super duper important because you could always just kill the guys, no big deal. So I would love to see that implemented again somewhere else, but more complicated.
Yeah, I like the whole, I guess, with the Nemesis system, how you can actually have almost like a personal vendetta against certain orcs. Because I remember when I was playing, there was this one guy in particular that just kept following me around. He'd always take pot shots at me when I was least expecting it. So that became like this personal nemesis throughout the game, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, there's the first one I died to. He got promoted, obviously.
Yeah.
And he just kept advancing up and up. So there's this one Uruk I know who's like surrounded by all the ones I haven't discovered yet, and he's ranked up like 5 or 6 times.
Just off your back, yeah.
I'm like, F that guy. I'm gonna kill him someday.
He's just farming you for experience so he can rise through
Pretty
the
much.
organization.
And even along with that, I really liked the progression they had and kind of how the game paid attention to it. Because I remember there was one orc I was fighting that I think I set him on fire, but I didn't get a chance to kill him. And then next time I run into him, he actually had, I guess, like bandages covering up the burn marks. And then there's other guys that, shot him through the eye. So next time you see him, he's got like a metal faceplate covering the eye that you shot out or stuff like that.
It's really incredible. And the dialogue's really good, too. They have so many unique lines.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I noticed that was something that really struck me. Was the dialogue was super good. And then like the camera movements, like the cinematography in the cutscenes is super good in that game, too. Like it felt more like watching a movie than watching like a video game cut screen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what I played this week. Cobalt was great. I plan to keep playing it. And then Shadow of Mordor, I'll probably keep playing it. I don't know if I'll finish it, but I'm going to dive into it for at least, I'd like to get at least 10 more hours out of it to see if I really like it or not.
Yeah, and I did a quick opinion video on Cobalt, which should be up on Monday, I think, if you want to see some footage and hear some of my general thoughts. Overall, the main thing that strikes me about that game is just how much stuff is in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's basically what I talk about, but I think it's awesome. I think that's one of the high points about that game.
Yeah, it's got a lot to it.
Well, let's see what Enrique's been playing. What you been playing this week?
Since yesterday, I've been playing pretty much XCOM nonstop. But before then, I really had like this itch for like a good turn-based game, and I saw that Valkyria Chronicle was on sale for like $5 on Steam, so I got that, and that was actually pretty fun.
That game's all right.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I never picked it up when it first came out on PlayStation 3, I think was originally out. But I've always heard really good things about it. I picked it up. It's that turn-based combat. It's a really fun story. I think my only complaint though is that I don't know if it's just because of the impatience I have to play XCOM this whole week, but some of those cutscenes felt so dragged out where like I found myself not really caring about the story. I just wanted to get into the meat of it, and I feel like the game kind of stalls a bit with that. But
I can tell you that
it was
I
a cool
can't.
system. It had like the World War II setting, the little anime backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
It's the turn-based combat with some interesting mechanics on it. So not too bad.
I have no idea what the story was to that game, so you're not.
It's like you're
not alone there. It's steampunk tanks. I remember that, and I remember scout rushes.
Tanks. There's 2 giant empires at war with each other. Your country's like a small neutral one, and then they, for whatever reason, they decide, hey, stop being neutral. So they invade you, and then you kind of form a militia to fight them off. So it's not too bad. But XCOM has been like a blast so far, even though I can't tell if it's unfair or if I'm just bad.
That's true. That's almost my main takeaway.
It's got a really weird difficulty spike, which like I'll have a mission where I'll do it flawlessly, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself, and then the next time I'll get everybody killed in like 3 turns.
Yeah, I wanted to play it on I wanted to play it on Commander Iron Man, and I ended up having to tick it down to Veteran because I just couldn't get any traction in those first couple missions. And when you just keep sending out rookies, like eventually the aliens are going to overwhelm and overpower you to the point where you almost can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I don't know if it gets better like down the line, but I felt like you're always a step behind from the advent forces because I feel like they always have either that one really overpowered unit or that one really good weapon on their side that no matter what you have technology-wise, it almost feels like they're always outclassing you, so you're playing catch-up, which on the one hand, it's kind of cool because it kind of builds the suspense of trying to stay alive, but at the same time, it can feel a little cheap when, you realize like, man, like whatever I'm throwing at him, it isn't really going to matter.
Right. That's true. What I started using way more grenades than I remember using in the first one. And that started to kind of turn the tide in my favor. And I think I also had to adjust to how far the enemies are able to move.
Yeah, that was very unexpected too. I think the stun lancers in particular can move like, it seems like half the map. And there's times where like I'll take up cover because I think I'm within a safe range. I'm like, oh, he can't get this far, and he traverses half the map and stuns your guy in one turn, and you're like, all right, well, not doing that again.
Yeah, and I think I've restarted maybe 5 or 6 times at this point, and I'm actually starting to get a little deeper I'm starting to make it past the first few missions without overwhelming casualties. So that leads me to believe that there is room to get better in that game, but I'm not exactly sure how my tactics have changed exactly.
Yeah, I think that was my issue with it. Like, I guess it's not consistent for me, which is what's kind of frustrating, that I can't tell if I'm just getting lucky with like just the dice rolls and I'm hitting when I'm supposed to be missing and things like that, or if it's just that I don't know what I'm doing right. Because like I said, it's not like I'm seeing consistent improvement. It's just I'll have missions where I completely make it flawlessly, and other missions where every unit will get flanked and then crit it, and then the computer just goes, "That's XCOM, baby."
Yeah, my
like,
theory.
Dude, I mean, missing a 95% hit with a sword is like embarrassing beyond all belief, and you're like, "Oh my god, why?"
It's real bad, and they just kind of stand there and look at each other, like, "Okay, oops, that was funny when I pretended to stab you, right?"
I know, and but like, and I was telling Sam earlier when I was watching him play, but like XCOM is one of those games that for every 28% hit chance that you actually successfully hit, you're going to miss two 98% ones. So it's like,
you got to pay your dues. But I do think
it's a fun
that
game.
If it was truly sort of unfair, I wouldn't be gradually getting better at it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
and
I think one of my favorite changes they made this time around is they added a timer for a lot of the missions where you have a certain number of turns to complete an objective, otherwise you fail. And I've seen a lot of people online kind of it's very polarizing. Some people like it, some people hate it, but I can appreciate it because I see how it encourages your playstyle to change. It makes you be more aggressive with the way you play whereas XCOM 1 and Enemy Within, Enemy Unknown, you could pretty much get away with just abusing the Overwatch and just slowly taking your time, clearing the map out. And with this one, you don't really have a chance.
Yeah, man, the timer thing. I hate it, but I'm in favor of it. If I'm allowed to be that way, like,
right.
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a smart mechanic to actually add a little bit of you need to rush or you need to change your tactics in a turn-based game.
Because it creates tension, and like I've had a lot of missions where I'll have 2 turns left to complete the objective, and the only way I'm going to make it is if I take one of my guys and put him completely out in the open. It's like, okay, I can reach the objective in the 2 turns, but he's going to die because he's got completely outflanked. So it's almost like that risk reward.
Right, and it encourages you to actually think more strategically as opposed to tactically, because you need to be thinking, all right, I need to be there in 3 turns. I need to be here in 4. Oh, I need to be here or I'm not going to be able to run all the way to the objective. So you're thinking a couple turns ahead, which is something I don't remember doing that much in the first one. It was just,
that's true.
What do I do right now to try and get the best damage on the other guys that I can?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I find myself setting up plays more than anything, because in the with Enemy Within, it almost felt like you just move your characters and react to whatever happens. But with this one, I find myself actually, picking positions, setting up Overwatch, just triggering their runs, just so I can kind of set off, I guess, the momentum and the way it plays. So it's definitely more tactical in that sense, that you're actually thinking about 3 or 4. It's almost like a chess game. You're thinking about 3 or 4 turns ahead and like where you can force them to move to set this off.
Yeah, and the concealment mechanic is awesome. I feel like we have to mention that first turn.
For sure. Being able to start off, I guess, invisible to the enemy and seeing where the line of sight is, so you can kind of adjust your characters accordingly, works great.
I just love the feeling of setting up that very first turn and then just dunking on them. When you wipe out a whole squad because you came out of concealment, everybody was on Overwatch except for the guy who initiated it. It just feels so good. That feeling is incredible, and I think that's an amazing change from the first one. But overall, I'd say that game's good. I'm still playing it.
Yeah, it definitely has some issues, which I was kind of surprised for a PC exclusive that it runs so poorly on computers. Between some of the screen tearing I've seen, some of the weird delays on turns, which drives me crazy.
Yeah, those are a tremendous bummer. I figure that can't be intentional. It doesn't seem like the computer is calculating.
I don't know what's going on, but yeah, like you'll finish a turn and it'll just hover 3 to 5 seconds, not doing anything.
Yeah, it's so weird because I expect to, when that guy stops moving or that guy finishes his shot, boom, we jump into alien activity. If there was a little load there or something afterwards, I'd be like, okay, the computer is thinking on how it wants to move, right? But it's not. It's like you finish moving and it goes beat, 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 alien activity. And it's so frustrating because it takes so much of the flow out of it, I think. And it doesn't feel streamlined.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It leaves a lot to say that a lot of the fixes we've seen so far are coming from modders. just players opening up the game files and figure out what little things to tweak to change this, like the speed of animations, the run animations, the loading time between enemies. So I don't know.
Yeah, the ones I've seen for the animation speed, which I really want that changed. So if you're out there and you make mods, please work on that, because I want this game to be maybe 150% faster would be awesome with the run speed and everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but overall, I mean, even though it's only been like a day and a half, I'm having a huge blast playing with it right now.
It is still fun. It really is still fun. But let's see. The pigeons are enormous. I do want to mention that. Those are
I like
very,
to think of it
very
as a
large.
design choice just so you notice them.
I do. I definitely do notice them because
They're like
freaking
small dogs.
huge.
Maybe it's just, like genetic tampering by the alien race.
Maybe that's what it is. Which, by the way, the alien race doesn't seem super duper bad to me yet, except for the fact that they're aliens. That seems to be our main point of contention with them. Because they're different and maybe they're genetically modifying people. Okay, awesome. But didn't we just have 20 years of peace and structured society? And they haven't revealed to me whatever this ultimate evil plot is that they're up to. But right now, I just feel like kind of a dick because it feels like a bunch of war dogs who couldn't get out of the mindset of having to fight the aliens and settle
Right.
into peacetime.
And it's funny because if you skip the tutorial mission, because when you do the tutorial mission, you go through a little bit of backstory. But if you skip it, your first mission is to blow up a monument. So it's kind of like, I don't see how this is fighting for freedom here.
Yeah, I need them to tell me that. Like, I need them to give me that story beat because right now I don't see how it's so bad. Like, okay,
Yeah,
some
I
people
mean-
have gone missing. All right, that kind of sucks, but generally, okay, maybe that's just the price you pay. But they have to be up to something. I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because it's doing that whole Black Set conspiracy thing where, like, Fox Mulder, you were right all along. Where on the surface it looks like you're the terrorist and everybody's living a happy, hunky-dory life, but as the game goes on, you start seeing more and more of like what they're doing behind the scenes.
that's what I want. I wish they'd feed that to me a little sooner. It would help engage me with their overall thematic stuff.
That way, you don't look like that crazy uncle at parties that just never let go of the war.
It's what I feel like. I mean, that's really what I feel like right now. But I haven't had a chance to get deep into it because I really keep restarting it over and over again. I'm probably on my 7th or 8th restart, just trying to get my foot in the door and build that first little twist of momentum to kind of push me through so that I can get some research done and start, rising above all this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's what threw me off. I felt like there was like a really steep learning curve when you first start off, that it takes you a few times to kind of get your bearings and then start going from there.
But I think, between the mods and between patches and stuff like that, they'll fix all the really small issues that I have with that game. And then it'll be thumbs up. I mean, just like the last one. The last one was really phenomenal.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
this will probably end up that way too.
But I mean, that's pretty much what I've been playing. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure XCOM's going to hold a spot for a while.
I hope so. For me too. And that's also, I'm exactly the same, man. I played XCOM this week and like The Witness before that, but I talked about that last week. So that about wraps it up. I'm getting real fatigued on The Witness.
Is
I'm
it
getting-
like the puzzling or?
Yeah, I'm getting puzzle fatigue, so I'm going to put it down for a few days and play XCOM 2 and then just try to pick at it a little bit at a time over time because the frustration starts to set in faster and faster.
Do you think that has to do with like
Faster
the lack
than
of
the
diversity?
rewards.
Because I've noticed that all the puzzles are just variations of the little slide mechanic.
It's absolutely not a lack of diversity. It's a lack of me wanting to do this anymore.
Okay.
It's just like I understand now like the process I'm gonna have to go through in my head, and I'm just exhausted in a way that is bone deep. So I'm gonna put it down for a little bit, and then I'm gonna go back to it, because I don't think I'm gonna forget all the rules and stuff, or if I do, that it's in there. You can just run somewhere and refigure out. Okay, that's right. That's how this works, and I'm just ready to take a little break, I think. But that was my week. And so, yeah, good week for video games. I think XCOM 2 is great.
Yeah, man.
For sure.
You guys are making me want to play it really bad.
You should. It's fun.
Yeah, I'll pick it up soon. I got one more paycheck. I'll get it.
Cool. Well, let's move on forward and let's talk about a couple of topics.
I want to talk about some of the bad words we have in gaming. And I'm talking about, not the F-bombs or anything like that, but things like linearity, free to play. They're words that when you hear them, you automatically assume the worst of a title. When you have like a game and somebody says, "Oh, it's very linear," for whatever reason, for a lot of people, that just means that it's a bad game for whatever reason. Linearity doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but we've made it as such. And I'm kind of wondering, what you guys' opinions are on that.
Well, I don't know. I kind of feel like it. I feel like it's suffering from the one bad apple ruins the bunch syndrome, because I don't know. Just because a game is free to play doesn't mean all free to play games are terrible, or that goes for any of the words. And I don't know if it's necessarily fair to instantly judge a game. I mean, to an extent, yeah, you can judge a game off of like if it's early access, but I don't know. To me, that doesn't mean that the early access is still going to be shitty. Like, you actually have to play the game or like listen to what other people have said about it to get like a good grasp of what that game is. Because other than that, you're just judging a book by its cover, and you never know what you're missing in that game.
Right. You're generalizing based off of the label, which is not a good way to go. I think it stems from two places. I think one of them is that now that video games have such a long history and we're kind of discovering what does and doesn't work, that some of that stuff is just no points. You don't want it to be unfair, and when the player dies, you want it to be their fault, and like just all those general rules that we've discovered over time that we've all agreed are kind of good ideas. I think that generates a lot of the bad words, and I think it also comes from oversaturation. I think that you get, like, if you got so many games that people got burnt out on them, let's say linear games, like we saw the alternative to linearity was the open world and all these options, and we said, you know what, we don't want to go back to linear games, and thus it became a bad word and something that you didn't want because now we've seen the alternative. And at that point it becomes like, if you choose to do that, you need to do it consciously, and you need to do it in a way that makes your game come together as a coherent whole. You can't just make a linear game because you feel like it anymore. And I think those two things I think it's just we know that some things in video games are bad now. And I think that that's why those things are bad words, because except for the exceptional case, generally speaking, to fall back on those concepts creates a subpar video game.
I think, talking about like fatigue and stuff, I think a lot of these ideas are, they're kind of novel when they first come out too. And then we end up just getting tired of them. Like, we see a game that's in early alpha and you have early access to it. Well, a couple of years ago, that was cool. Like, you got to be a part of the development process. You got to be on the inside of things, and like you were an in-group person. And each time the game was updated, like, it was really exciting. But now so many games are early access. It's like, I was a big supporter of early access games when they first came out. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. But now, after playing DayZ, after playing H1Z1, after playing Star Citizen, the list keeps going on. I can't remember how many alpha games I've played.
Sure.
Rust, all this. I don't want to play any more alpha games.
Yeah.
I used to like it.
Yeah, exactly. But now it's either tied up in a promotional thing, or it's used in a way that it's untrue to the meaning that it used to be.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say, because I've noticed that a lot, where, especially when it comes to alphas and betas, that I don't think people go into it with the mindset of understanding what an alpha or beta really is. And early access becomes a bad word because we have a wrongful interpretation of it. When you have a game in early access, this doesn't mean, hey, play a free demo for the game. It means play a very early, rough stage of this game, and before it's even finished. And for whatever reason, when people go into it, that idea or that thought just completely escapes their mind. So they're playing this game and then they get pissed off because, oh, this is broken. Oh, this doesn't work. Oh, this game is unfinished. There's nothing to do. And they start attributing, I guess, their own biases and their own expectations that weren't met with just the general moniker of early access games. So in their mind, hey, early access is always going to be bad because it's not what I wanted.
And I think for those people, early access has been a bad word for a long time. But I think for people who have been playing those kinds of games for a long time, like me, for instance, I started with DayZ and I was really excited about it. And then as I played it more and more, like, you get more updates and stuff, and you kind of get in the groove of what the development speed is. But now, like, I'm disinterested in that process almost. DayZ is really the only alpha game I still play on a regular basis, and I'm tired of waiting for updates. I've committed to sticking through that process, but I'm tired of waiting for updates in DayZ. Like, I just want them to come already. That when I see another early access title, I think, you know what, I don't want to wait. I don't want to be a part of that process anymore. Like, I had my fill, and like, I understand that development takes time and all this stuff, and there's snags and everything. But I don't know. I just think I'm interested in playing finished games.
No, I'm
and
actually
I
in a
think that
similar
goes
boat,
for yeah.
where I think that I understand what a beta and alpha is, but for me, early access has become kind of a bad word because I guess it's been so overdone and oversaturated that we're seeing so many games being, quote unquote, released without being finished yet. And I guess I get fatigued because it'd be really nice if I could play completed games and then the occasional, oh man, this one looks interesting, but it's not done yet. Let me see what it's like now and what it can be. But when you have every single title doing that, it kind of creates this fatigue, especially when I guess I don't know if it's more recent within the years, but it feels like a lot more of those titles that are in early access just either never see the light of day or the production just kind of stops halfway through and they release it as a very unfinished piece of crap.
And I think that concept kind of spans for all these words we've been using, like free to play. Like League of Legends, when it came out and it was this massive free to play game, it was awesome. Like everybody loved it and everybody hopped on because you didn't have to buy anything to play. But over time, more free to play games came out. And now when we hear the word free to play, it's like, oh God, they're going to screw us on some sort of microtransaction or some other thing, So I think in the case of most of these words, it's just fatigue with that, the novelty of that, I suppose.
And you get the pile-on effect. I mean, I'm sure early access used to be great, Kickstarter used to be great, free-to-play used to be great, and then all the other games came in. And the concept got so watered down that you can't approach it and be assured of its quality or be assured that it's a good experience anymore. Mm-hmm. And there's so many bad ones versus the good ones that at that point, the safe move is to avoid it completely. Mm-hmm. And when that wariness escalates to a certain level, that's when it becomes a bad word because I know that my odds of this thing are like not good enough,
Right. Well, I know that's a easy definition to apply to like things like free to play and early access. But what about when it comes to, I guess, something like linearity in a game? Because that kind of just describes the type of game it is. And at least for me, I've played several linear games that aren't bad, but for whatever reason, describing a game as linear is a bad thing, I guess, in the eyes of most people.
It's a bad thing because we've all gotten so hung up on player choice and multiple decisions and multiple branching pathways. For some reason, we're all super excited about that kind of thing.
Do you think it has to do, I guess, going along with that, just the definition of it suddenly implies the exclusion of all those other factors?
I think so. That's definitely, yeah.
I don't know, because when I think of a linear game, I don't think of a game that limits you. I think of just a game that's very direct in its purpose. Like, I don't know, like, hey, BioShock is a very linear game, but it still has that, those little upgrade features. It's got like a nice little story. It's got some side stuff you can do, but it's very linear in the sense that you're not going to get any hidden endings. You're not going to get any kind of secret areas. It's just, go from point A to point B.
Well, I don't know if I'd put BioShock there, but I do see what you're trying to say. I mean, and we also got caught up with a whole bunch of corridor shooters and stuff. It kind of got wrapped up in the mix. I don't think linearity is a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
I just think that right now the video game populace is focused on the opposite. And you don't want to come out with something that flies in the face of what everybody's looking for.
I got you.
I mean, like in general terms.
It'd be like coming out with a movie about vampires right now when vampires were popular 5 years ago, Right. Do you guys think that we so like if you use film used to be all black and white, silent, and then it moved into, color and sound. But like let's use the color. You have color movies for years, and then in the 90s, like we get Schindler's List, which is black and white. So do you think we'll stray away from these concepts far enough that when we go back to them, it's like a new thing again?
I think you see that now. I think you see that now with some of the mechanics that were drawn from the 90s and the 80s are coming back around again. You see a lot of it in the indie resurgence. I mean, let's look specifically at the art style, because there was a time there where you didn't go 16-bit or 8-bit, and then it exploded. And now we're getting fatigued on it again, right. And it's becoming a bad word again.
Because everybody's doing like 8-bit or retro's a bad word now because it's got a retro style.
Right, and that's just oversaturation in that case. I mean, it's because so many of them came out. It's like, if you want to say the black and white thing, it's because okay, we've all moved forward. We're in this other place that's ahead of the previous zone now. If you're going to bring back something from back there, you need to nail it, and you need to have a reason, and it needs to be part of, you don't just do it, is what I'm saying. Like, it has to be a conscious, directed effort.
Yeah, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because that's been a while, but I remember in Schindler's List, even though it was black and white, it still had a really creative use of color, because I do remember, like, the little girl with the red dress.
Yeah.
Like, it had color, but it was done in a way where the black and white was supposed to kind of put emphasis on those really small instances of it. So it was done with a purpose.
When you watch that movie, you're supposed to think, "Whoa, this is black and white," and then the accent colors complement that.
Yeah.
You know.
So like when you have indie games at the same time, like I think we were in like this. We ran into the issue where you had a couple titles that came out that were trying to recreate that old, the charm of like the old 1990s, kind of like 8-bit, 16-bit games, which it started off really cool. But then, I guess it started going more from people using it as, like, okay, Shovel Knight was a great example of it. Shovel Knight intentionally had like the color palette, the sprite design, because they wanted to do kind of like a resurgence of like that old like Nintendo platformer style.
And Shovel Knight's outstanding.
Yeah, and
I remember reading,
game.
I think in their blog, there were only 2 cases where they used something outside of the color palette.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's one of those. It's
that.
one of those like times when it's actually done with reason. But then you have a bunch of other titles where they just do it because they either saw it done and like they want to copy it, or they just do it because it's easier. And that's when you start getting to that kind of like that oversaturation where it's done without purpose.
And I mean, hey man, I'm still in the camp of that they should do it because I like it and I think it looks cool and it feels familiar and comforting to me.
Right.
But I understand that that's not true for a whole heap of people. And it's just that thing, man. It becomes a bad word when it's done to the extreme and everything is doing this now. And you're like, why is everybody doing this if it's not objectively better than the previous thing? You're like, don't do that again. That's a bad word now. We don't do that anymore. That's not how we behave in this society. It's just, that's what it is, I think. I think that's where a lot of the bad word stuff comes from. Because we are learning and we are making better video games and we're running, all these intense simulations. Like, have you ever seen the heat maps for when they're designing levels and finding out where players get stuck and then tuning them so that they don't get stuck there anymore? Like, we have that expectation now that a game should flow in this manner and it should have these characteristics. And so the other things become bad words because now we've seen the alternative. We know that there is a better thing in contrast to the other one.
Do you see any words now or terminology that is kind of like on that cusp of becoming a bad word?
Survival games.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Soon. Yeah, survival.
Or survival elements. I remember it was crafting was bad for a while.
Yeah, because the whole
crafting.
Minecraft
Man, yeah.
Survivors are definitely getting to that point. I'm starting to feel like open world games are starting to get that, or like they're kind of teetering on the edge of it for a little bit, because it feels like
I hope so.
A lot of games are doing the open world thing, but they're not really doing anything with it.
Yeah, there's not enough to do.
Yeah,
or maybe they're all doing the same thing in the open world.
Yeah, they throw out like, oh, it's a massive open world environment, but when you land there, there's nothing there. It's just kind of like, okay, I can go there, but
there's like shops, places to craft, missions that aren't the main storyline. And then like little missions you can do for money, and that's like every open world map that uses those elements.
I don't know that open world will end up there because I think enough people are looking for that, and I think that we're coming upon more and more conventions that make that a way to do it that's interesting. Mm-hmm. I think with some of the dynamically generated events that happen in little places and some of the interesting terrain, and I think there's always going to be a brand of people who just like wandering through the countryside.
I wonder if open world is going to become a bad word if procedural generation keeps moving forward.
That's another... Oh, actually, procedural generation and maybe roguelikes are kind of two of them that are, I think, bouncing back and forth as well.
They're getting there. That's true. We're definitely seeing a lot more procedural generation now, which should not be a bad word because eventually... if you give that time to cook and simmer, it's going to be one of the most amazing thing that's ever happened to video games.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I think the issue is, though? I think it's that people, and by people, I don't know if like the game sites or the marketing sites, they take these certain elements and they use them as buzzwords. And I think when they start being used as buzzwords is when they start kind of becoming, like, leaving a bad taste in our mouth. Because when you start seeing like a lot of PR companies saying, like, oh, it's it's revolution procedurally generated, or it's like it's a survival like roguelike game. I think it's when you start seeing them describing these using them as very generic, vague terms to describe a game.
Yeah, and it's like, it seems to me that, if you create a buzzword that people are, say it's a concept people are going to get tired of, it's like create the buzzword, implement that into the game, and then cash out before everyone gets tired of it.
Oh, no doubt. And I think that's probably has more to do with the problem than anything else. Because there's really no such thing as a bad word. There's things that we've sort of all agreed shouldn't be in video games, but if you can take any of those and do them in a way that people will enjoy. You can make a good video game out of every single bad word that exists. It's just that you don't see that enough to create a contrast between the fact that if I approach a game that tags itself with one of these like danger words or whatever you want to call them, generally speaking, I'm going to be right,
Yeah, because, we're sitting here talking about how you can make a good linear game, but if I see a game, or let's use early access, you can make a game can be good in early access, but I don't want to buy any more early access games.
Right.
And that just shows, the effect it has on people. Like we're sitting here saying we recognize all of this, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to go buy these games.
You're still
I probably know what
effect.
it's going to be like.
For this next topic, I wanted to discuss a little bit of personal preference, a little bit of overall evaluation, but I wanted to talk about value propositions in video games. How do you personally calculate that? Is it a worthwhile calculation to even do to decide if a video game is worth the money? What does worth the money even mean? It seems like a good thing to, sort of have some thoughts on, so I thought I'd bring it to the table.
I used to have, the $1 an hour mentality, where if I get at least the equivalent number of hours that I paid for in dollar amount, I was considered success. So, a $20 game should give me about $20 of 20 hours of enjoyment. A $60 game should give me 60 hours, stuff like that. But I don't know if that's really accurate anymore, considering the length and production value that goes to games nowadays.
Yeah, the companies are just going to start extending games for no reason.
I do hear that one a lot. That's probably one of the most common ones I hear is the hour to dollar.
I think it's so common because it works on some level, because the idea is that if you're playing a game that has you coming back to it over and over again, you're obviously getting your money's worth out of it, at least in regards to time played or enjoyment out of it. Yeah. But by the same token, you look at games like World of Warcraft, where a lot of it is just grinding and commitment and like that obligation you have. So it makes you wonder, is that really worth the money you've paid for it when you take into account the subscriptions people have been paying, monthly for however many years versus what you've actually been doing in that time in the game?
Yeah, but what a value.
Right? Yeah.
On its face. That's when you ask the question, how many of those were good hours? How many of those were mediocre hours? And the whole system kind of starts to fall apart a little bit from there.
It's like if I had to pay, 99 cents to play a cookie clicker. That game would not be worth 99 cents despite me getting how many hours of gameplay out of it, just because,
Right. And I think that maybe that's not a bad place to start if you wanted to combine a few other things into it and, roll it together with some concepts like, okay, how much was I engaged? How much was I having fun? What am I actually doing? How much of this is grinding? How much of this is collectible shit? Like rolling all of it together, but starting with the metric of dollars per hour.
Yeah, but
that's never really worked for me, not only because of that, but because I've played so many incredible short length experiences.
Yeah, and and a counter to that dollar per hour amount too is that there's several games that I wanted to play and I know I'm going to get enjoyment out of it, but my mentality is I'm going to wait till it goes on sale because I don't want to pay, such and such amount. Case in point, The Witness, it looks like a gorgeous game, but there's still something in the back of my mind saying, I don't really want to pay $40 for that. And I can't really explain it.
And with the way Steam does sales so often, it's like, you're almost dumb.
It's like
games.
Why? It's almost like you have that thought in the back of your head but it's weird because it doesn't work both ways, because like XCOM too, I had no problem paying full price for it. There was no thought that I'm going to wait till this goes on sale, because it probably will.
Well, I think at that point you're paying to satisfy your impatience.
Right, just like the instant gratification.
Yeah, I'm sure, for me, I'm sure XCOM is a wonderful game, but I'm not impatient enough to go spend $60 on it just yet.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's where a lot of that comes from. Cause like I said, when there's sales so often, the only reason to buy a game early is either to like get into a special event that they're doing when the game launches, or just to satisfy impatience.
I mean, it's not a bad thing because there's several, and it's funny because there's several titles on my Steam library that I've bought on sale, which after playing, I would have easily paid like the full retail value on it because I enjoyed it so much. But it's like a weird transition thought process where I approach it thinking, oh man, I'm not going to pay that much for this game. Hey, this is on sale. That seems like a reasonable investment. And afterwards thinking, I could definitely pay even more for this.
What's funny is that in XCOM's particular case, because of the way all that sale stuff works, I don't even think about it as a $75 value or a $60 value. I don't know what the exact breakdown is, but it's probably something like, this is a $35 game and I'm going to pay a $25 play it now tax.
Okay.
That's what it feels like. And so I definitely didn't have that mentality in the past. It's definitely something that's cropped up with the fact that the pricing on games it doesn't make any sense. If you're willing to wait even just a month, you're not paying full retail. If you're willing to wait 6 months, you're probably paying half price. And in that environment, you're right. It does seem crazy to pay full retail for something, and that makes the valuing weird. I want to play it right now, and so that a certain part of the price is like considered upon that.
I think it's funny because that puts the consumer obviously in an awkward position, but that almost for the developers that puts them in an awkward position too, because it's like how do you expect them to price their game when our buying habits are so erratic?
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know, it's almost, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of hard to ask for a cheaper price or a price you want when it's like they're having the same struggle just on the other side. They may have a little more leverage than you do, but still.
When you play games, do you find that the money do you find that you critique the game harshly or more generously based on the price you paid for it?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Once I pay the price, I almost never think about it again.
I don't know, because I've had moments where I paid $60 for a game and I'm more critical of it, saying, "Oh, like XCOM, I paid my $60, and I'm actually being really critical on a lot of the bugs that it has because I feel like that it's unacceptable." But
I mean, you're paying a premium price.
Yeah, I guess, and you expect it to be
a premium game.
But for whatever reason, like if I had played, if I had paid $10 for XCOM, that that 3 to 5 second load time between turns or like the weird random bugs, it wouldn't really bother me as much.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's like once I've already paid that money, that's
out of sight, out of mind.
Out of sight, out of mind. That was the cost. That was the barrier of entry. I'll think about it a lot, like up to the purchasing point, but afterwards, it's like, okay, I have this thing, and I can't feel ripped off or anything. I mean, before Steam implemented the refund system, what good would that do you? You could feel like the most ripped off person in the world, but you're not going to be able to do anything about it. So it's just wasted mental effort.
Well, now that you bring up the refund system, I was going to say, I feel that way until I pass my refund limit. And then I'm like, okay, I bought it. I made my bed. I'll play this game. If it's, if it's bad, if it's good, it's like, cool. It's good.
Sure. And, here I am. And I know buyer's remorse is a real thing. And I know that happens. But in a situation where you can't change it and you can't do anything about it, I think the best way is just to forget about it. Play it if it gets better. Don't play it if it doesn't. Maybe learn next time
just accept the loss.
Yeah.
Make a better informed purchase.
Right. Yeah. Evaluate your decisions a little better beforehand. But none of that actually comes into the actual, was this worth $60? I don't think I've ever asked myself, was this game worth what I paid for it?
No.
It's just a good or a bad game. I never think about it in terms of how much
not
I paid
after the fact, but I find myself making that, I guess, questioning myself that before purchasing a game. Like, is this game worth this amount?
Right. That is definitely a pre-purchase sort of question that I have.
Decision, yeah.
And I always evaluate it as, I don't really do dollars to hours because I've played some amazing games that weren't that long. I generally think of it as, I try to get a sense of what that game is going to be. And if it's fun, not fun, that's the wrong way to look at it. The enjoyment. Will I enjoy this $20 worth? Will I get $20 worth of utility out of this video game?
But I mean, I guess that begs the question, is $60 worth of enjoyment or $60 enjoyment worth more than $20?
No.
Well,
because I've played thousands of hours of Guild Wars, which I paid full price for. But I paid $60 for Guild Wars or whatever it was when it came out, and then I paid $20 for Counter-Strike, and I've enjoyed Counter-Strike playing that more so than Guild Wars, and I have almost 1,000 hours, I think, in Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I think for me it's more like expectation.
Right.
Like that's where the value proposition comes in. That's where the dollars to enjoyment ratio is all on the expectation side. And then when I get in there, I'm right or I'm wrong. Okay, there's only two destinations at that stop, right? Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, I do better than I don't do. But the problem is that also leads to not being as adventurous as I would like to be outside of Steam sales.
I could see that.
Because I wish I had the time to just play everything, but it just doesn't work.
Yes, like for me, I have like a weird mix of, I guess, the expectation, and I look at what a game is trying to do, and I guess that builds my expectations, and then I look at how well it did what it set out to do, and I guess that kind of mixes in with my enjoyment of it. So like if a game, like a game sets out to create a really robust turn-based, in-depth combat system, and that's my expectation going in. And if it does it well, I consider that a success versus, a game that paints itself as trying to achieve, this certain goal that builds my expectation. I go in there and it falls short of what I was hoping. Then that kind of, on the other hand, means that, okay, this definitely wasn't worth what I thought it was.
Right. And that's just like, oops.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of stuck at that point, but it's really all front ended. And so I think that's why it's front-ended, is because when you get in there, the evaluation is sort of more difficult to make. Like, what is one awesome sequence? Like, how much money is that worth? How much is 1 hour of the best gameplay you've ever played? What's a dollar value to put to that? Yeah, that's
true, because what happens when that feeling isn't consistent throughout, where, you have that 1 or 2 hours that are spectacular, and then you have that lull in the middle that, it's really not worth much.
And so I guess you just ride that wave. You could be ripped off. You could feel ripped off. You could feel kind of bummed out. You could feel excited. You could feel super excited. How do you feel on a 0 to 10 scale? Very, very excited or very, very disappointed? And then how do you equate that to, oh crap, I just wasted $60? Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure. Question. I mean, like, that's why I think that people are coming up with ways that they think it was or wasn't.
Sure, you kind of just try to justify it after the fact.
That's definitely part of it, yeah. And then also things like the hours to dollars, or the polish $2, or the bugs $2 sort of ratios, and all sort of. Sorry.
Like, how do you, when you have such a diverse platform or a diverse medium like video games, where there's just, it's like limitless what you can do. All you have to do is have the technology to do something. How do you use such a static scale like dollars to hours to compare, an RTS and a shooter? Because they're totally different games. And like, one game may ramp up, and then once you get to that point, like you really have fun, or maybe one game starts off really fun at the beginning, but then drops off. And it's almost, I get to a point where I feel like I'm comparing apples to oranges. And the best thing to do is just, after you play a game, like, you have that feeling, I'm enjoying this.
And branching off that a bit,
or not.
Something that kind of irks me is that I've noticed a couple of reviewers every now and then we'll toss that as part of their metric, where they, they'll have a footnote at the bottom of the game saying, oh, this game was fun, but I don't recommend it as a $60 purchase. Or it might be worth picking up when it goes on sale down the line. So it seems interesting that even like from a reviewer standpoint, they start kind of taking that dollars to enjoyment into consideration as well.
I don't think you can do that. I definitely don't think it extends that far. Like, that's the sales thing, right? Everybody that walks through this door, you have no idea how much money is in their pocket. All they should do is try to inform people as much as possible about what the game is. It's really not in their court to say this experience is worth this much money, because how many different people are out there with how many different sums of money? I think that is almost ignorant in a way to say something like that.
I think it's doable when you have like a static system measurement, like Sleeping Dogs. I would tell anybody right now that the game is completely worth the price of entry right now at $30, considering that the definitive edition has all that DLC that when it first came out, I think it was $60 for the base game with $40 additional dollars on top of it for all the extra stuff. So, I mean, I guess from that static comparison, I think you can make that kind of judgment.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if it's 70% off what it would have been at retail, okay, this is worth it. Maybe a little bit of it is on our. Do we think that certain price points come with certain expectations? This is some of the talk I've heard going around about The Witness, is that an indie game can't be $40, and then that there's, the indie game should be like $20.
Not necessarily the indie game, but I've heard it.
The $60.
I've heard it said from like a
AAA
puzzle
only.
game can't be $40 kind of thing.
I don't know about that. I don't think you should restrict any genre to a price point.
I don't think so either. I think the price point is very independent of that, but it's just maybe we're sort of stuck in that rut because it is such a commonality. Okay, $60 games are big budget,
like
big
the AAA
publisher, big studio
versus indie
games.
titles that are $30 at the high end, and then with 20 to 15, 29, that's what the median price range should be for them.
Right. And I don't know how you would work out that kind of system.
That's true though. Because I have heard about that for The Witness, where a lot of people, like, their hesitation is like, it's an indie game. Why would I be paying $40 for that?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's not fair.
Oh no, for sure. But I think it ties back to what you mentioned, that I do think that there's almost a bit of an expectation on what a price point should be, or like what should come with that price margin. And it's funny because, when you think about a $40 game, $40 game from an indie developer, people say, wow, that's, that's way too much. But what if you had like a AAA company releasing a $40 game? Immediately that kind of sets off some red flags.
Right. Yeah. You're like, whoa, they must have really dropped the ball
exactly.
on this one.
Like
Why
if you
are they
see
only
like
charging
Activision
$40?
releasing, some random game for $39.99, you're like, ooh, this must be bad.
Yeah. And I guess it comes down to information, and it comes down to whatever you personally got out of it. And maybe that's just a decision for everybody to make, whether certain games are worth certain amounts of money. But I guess the only ultimate conclusion you can draw is that if you don't want to get burned and you don't want to have buyer's remorse, that you have to learn as much about it as possible before you cross the threshold.
Yeah, I agree with that, which is why we have awesome podcasts to listen to about games, so you know.
That's right. For example, yeah. And that will bring us to the conclusion of episode 39, and you already know what time it is. It's time to pick a game club for this week, and this time the decision goes to Ryan. What do you want to play?
I want to play Cobalt, so let's flood those multiplayer servers and get more than 6 or 8 people online and dive into that game, because I want to see, like, it looks really deep. It's got a lot of different mechanics and weapons and all this just different stuff. So I really want to dive into that game and see what it's all about.
Cool. I'd love to have some people to play with. Let's do that. It sounds fun. If you want to play Cobalt with us, which you should, maybe, because I feel like that game's getting underappreciated right now.
Definitely.
So maybe we can help a little bit. You can send us your thoughts, selectcharacters@gmail.com. Check out our YouTube channel. We have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/selectcharacters. We're around and we want to hear from you. If you have an idea for a topic, something you want us to talk about, something you feel like needs to be addressed, send it to us. Stop waiting. Just send it to us. We will discuss it on the show. We'll give you a shout out, all that good stuff. Find us on Facebook, Twitter. Give us 5 stars on iTunes. Keep listening, because honestly, that's the part I care about. I don't care about that social media stuff. And stay tuned to the YouTube channel. We got game clubs coming up. We got opinion video on Monday. And other than that, we will see you next week.